Hello friends, welcome to another video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I incoherently ramble about different episodes from different Star Trek TV shows. 50 years and a couple of days ago, NBC aired the next episode of the second season of the classic Star Trek show called The Deadly Years. And these are my honest opinions about it. I like that this episode doesn't waste any time and throws us into the action. Now, the away team has beamed down to a planet, but nobody from the six-person team is waiting for them. They split so that they can check more styrofoam buildings a bit more faster. Chekhov goes to the dark building, where he encounters a dead body. Now, for some reason, he completely flips out. Quite strange to see a professional Starfleet officer to behave like a 5-year-old girl, but unfortunately this is really important to the plot, so you can't really cut it out. Everybody else goes inside to check the body, when an elderly couple comes in and say that the dead man is Elvin. So I guess the two of them are Simon and Fyodor. Well, their names are not important. The important thing is that they are both less than 30 years old. Actually, everybody who was living there was younger than 30, but everybody except them died already of old age. That explains the title perfectly. Our heroes bring the two survivors on board, and Kirk calls a meeting where we meet the two guest stars for this episode. Commodore Stockrer, who just was named the big boss of Starbase 10, where he wants to get as quickly as possible, and Dr. Janet Wallace. And because she's a female guest star, of course she was an old ex of Captain Kirk. So she's the love interest, and I guess Stockrer should be the villain. But I have a problem calling him like that. He is mad that Kirk doesn't want to leave until they find out what killed the people, but very soon we find out that Kirk will have a more personal reason for a very quick research of the situation himself. On the bridge he gives Sulu an order to maintain orbit. Well, there's nothing wrong with that order. The problem is that he gives him the order in a few minutes again. The female lieutenant complains that she has suddenly a problem with her ears. Kirk tells Spock that he should check the comet which recently passed the planet, completely forgetting that he gave him the same order already when he was on the bridge. Because of this and a strange pain in his shoulder, he goes to the sickbay where McCoy, who has meanwhile some grey hair, tells him that he has arthritis, this thing. But also the last member comes to sickbay, Scotty, and he's white. I mean, he's more white than he was ever before, and I must admit that the makeup artists have done some really great job on this episode. In the next act we see that Kirk is suddenly older too. Actually, everybody grows older, approximately 30 years each day, which means they will be dead in less than a week and mentally incapable of working within a day or two. The only person who is not affected for some reason is Chekhov, and they desperately try to find out why, and he's not very happy about it. There is something interesting going on with Dr. Wallace. Suddenly, when Kirk looks like her father, she's again interested in him, and we find out that her last husband was 26 years older than her. This is interesting. Were they trying to tell a story about some weird king she has? Pity it wasn't developed a bit more. I actually knew a girl personally who was really into older men, and I always remember her when I see this episode. Unfortunately, they didn't explore this at all. I would love to know more about this topic for very selfish reasons. Back on the bridge, Kirk falls asleep. When they wake him up, he signs the report, asks Sulu to move the ship to a higher orbit, asks Uhura to send Starfleet a message using Code 2, which the Romulans have decrypted already, then wants to again sign the report, and then he again asks Sulu to move the ship to a higher orbit. This all in front of Commodore Wallace, who as soon as he gets the chance catches Spock and basically forces him to take over as the captain. when he refuses because he is also infected, but his symptoms are a bit slower because Vulcans have a higher lifespan, so he at least forces him to call a competency hearing. We meanwhile see the now extremely old lieutenant die in the hands of the captain himself. McCoy and his team has meanwhile found out that it's a radiation sickness, but none of the known cures are working. The next thing which happens is the competency hearing itself. Story-wise, it's just a recap of the things which we have seen happening until now, but I must admit one thing: I love Bill Shatner. I know he's always a target of jokes who make fun of his overacting, but his acting as old Kirk is just perfect in my opinion. But I'm a fan of his work, so I'm not really objective, of course, but still I love his acting, mainly in episodes like this one or the final episode where he plays a crazy woman inside of his body. When Spock and Dr. Moral Support go to tell him that he was relieved of command, he first flips out, accusing Spock of backstabbing him, but he changes his tone when he realizes that Spock didn't take the command. Commodore Stoker did, which is pretty unfortunate because Stoker has never commanded a starship before, which makes me wonder how exactly do the promotions work in Starfleet when a man who is less experienced than a starship captain can get into a position of such a power. While the medical team, which now includes Spock and Dr. Wallace, tries to desperately find a cure based on an article which McCoy read many years ago, Stoker manages to show his incompetence. He gave the order to fly to Starbase 10 directly, and he didn't care that that course will bring the Enterprise inside the neutral zone, despite being warned by Sulu. And guess what happens? The Enterprise gets attacked by stock footage of Romulan warships. Kirk wants to go to the bridge so desperately that they have to tie him to a bed. Makes me wonder if this is the first time Kirk was tied to a bed. But thankfully Spock has a potential cure, but as always they didn't have the time to test it, so it could cure them or it could kill them, as in 30 other episodes. But as in 30 other episodes, of course, the cure works. Kirk gets young again and kicks Stoker out of his captain's chair. So now they have the last problem: how to deal with the Romulans shooting them. Well, thankfully the writer of this episode has also seen the season 1 episode called The Corbomide Maneuver, so Kirk uses basically the same trick. He tells Uhura that she should send a message to Starfleet using code 2. She tries to protest that the code was cracked, but he's the captain, and we soon find out why he chose code 2. He sends a message to Starfleet explaining that they accidentally got into the neutral zone and got attacked, and now they have to blow themselves up using Corbomide, and that part of the galaxy will be quite affected. This message works as expected. The Romulans stop shooting and prepare to quickly leave, so the Enterprise has a chance to get the duck out of there. The end. I think that this episode belongs to the best episodes of the second season, maybe even to the best episodes of the whole show. The writing on this one is a fine example of why I like the original series much more than, for example, Voyager. If this same plot was used on Voyager, we would devote 10 minutes of screen time to technobabble. They would try to come with a detailed explanation of what exactly happened and how exactly did the cure work. However, in TOS these things are not important. Why are they growing old? Comet. How did they get younger that quickly? Who cares? Instead of concentrating on nonsense, which does sound scientific but in reality is still just nonsense, they concentrate on the people. How does this new situation affect them? How do they deal with the fact that they're suddenly older? For example, the whole sequence with the competency hearing. It brings absolutely nothing new to the story, but still is very important, because it tells us much more about our characters than an hour of expositional dialogue would do. And as I said, I love Shatner's performance in this episode, but especially when he's in his oldest phase. The pacing is great, even though I'm pretty sure some people would call it too slow. Even though I really love this episode, it's clearly not perfect. Let's talk about our two guest stars. Why is Commodore Stockerer in this story? Because the only thing he does is he tries to get to Starbase 10, takes command of the Enterprise and almost gets her destroyed. You could replace him with basically any underused previously established character. And why is Dr. Wallis there? You could cut her out of the episode completely and nothing would change. We would only lose the dialogue which suggests that she likes men who could be her father. That's why I would expect that they would develop that idea a bit more, but they went nowhere with it. She is probably the least important guest star in the history of Star Trek, unimportant guest stars. And I have a problem with Kirk's makeup. He doesn't look old enough. I remember I read somewhere that it's because Shatner refused to look too old, but I have no clue if it's true or not. But clearly he has just grey hair and a few wrinkles. His age is mainly shown using his acting. So no, I wouldn't call this episode perfect, but I would call it almost perfect. On my scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is average, I would give this episode 9 out of 10. As I said, I consider it to be almost perfect. But as always, those were just my opinions. Feel free to write down your opinions down in the comment section. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, and if you have some free time, feel free to watch any other video you can find on my channel. You should see some links on screen right now. Later this week I'm going to do a video about the next episode from the original series called Obsession. In December I will do only videos about TOS, videos about TNG and Discovery will come back in January, so thanks a lot for watching, and see you later!